forensic. That time we'll be discussing this portion of the topic. Okay, definition of burns. Let's define the burns part. That's defined as destruction found in the deeper epidermal tissue, dermal tissue, or deeper subcutaneous tissue. And that is because of contact with either thermal, chemical, or electrical burns. Once we come to the pathophysiology, you are reading about the pathogenesis of most of the systems now because you're reading pathology. So basically, when we talk about pathophysiology, it's basically when you're talking about burns, you can divide them into local, regional, or systemic. Local means that at the site of the burns, what is going to happen. Regional will be meaning whether it's a limb involvement or a torso involvement, and systemic is especially when there are extensive burns, then you'll have systemic manifestation because of the burns disease, not because of the localized burn process, but because of some other changes which are occurring in the systemic process. So local, the tissue damage occurs. It causes direct cell rupture, cell necrosis, and protein denaturation. So the protein inside the cells will get denatured, and they cause damage to the tissues. The capillaries which are there in the skin and the subcutaneous areas will either become thrombosed or they become leaky. Because they become leaky, there's increased permeability, and then there's loss of serous protein-rich fluids. There is inflammation also. There is inflammation also in the form of erythema. Vasodilatation, erythema means redness, vasodilatation. Then there are mobilization of macrophages. These produce inflammatory mediators. You must have read about some of the inflammatory mediators in your pathology, like transforming growth factors. And these help in phagocytosing the necrotic cells. In the local changes also, we find that infection is very common in burn patients. And since it's a damaged tissue becomes the nidus for infection. It is seen that within 24 to 48 hours, all burn wounds get colonized to a certain extent. If it's a small wound, then the colonization may not be so significant. But if it's an extensive burn, let's say 80%, 70% burns, there the colonization is so extensive that the patient can have later lead on to bacteremia or septicemia. Bacteremia word means that there is presence of bacteria in the circulation. That may not be symptomatic. That's why the term is used, bacteremia. If the bacteremia becomes pathological and starts causing symptoms, then the term is labeled as septicemia. So we'll not talk about bacteremia or septicemia here. You just have to know that bacteremia is very common because burn wounds get colonized. There's already leaky capillaries. These bacteria enter into the circulation, and if you take a culture of these patients, you will find that you will grow some of the other organisms. Out of these three organisms, beta hemolytic streptococcus, pseudomonas, and sometimes clostridium, are the more dangerous. So whenever we treat a burn patient, we usually are in the lookout for these organisms because they are important for the further management of these patients. When we give a skin graft, these are the three organisms which are responsible for loss of a skin graft. And that is why wound culture is very important in the work of these patients. Let's talk about the regional part. Like I said, regional will involve either extremity or maybe the torso. So circulation can be compromised by direct damage to the limb vessels. In the high tension electrical burns, you have touched in electrical burns, maybe the radial artery or the ulnar artery becomes completely thrombosed and the vascularity is lost. Sometimes there is so much of venous extravasation of fluid from the capillaries that gross edema occurs, which may obstruct the circulation by initial venous obstruction, and if it keeps on persisting, sometimes it can even lead on to a arterial obstruction, though it is slightly uncommon to have edema causing arterial obstruction, but that extent is also possible sometimes. You can have circumferential eschar. Eschar is actually the leathery kind of a skin that becomes after the burn wound starts healing. That eschar can cause it can be completely circumferential and cause a compartment syndrome. Compartment syndrome means that since you know that extremities are divided into compartments, and if you completely encircle them, there's no space for the muscles to expand or even the vessels to expand when they are pulsating. That leads on to ischemia. If undetected, sometimes compartment syndrome can produce symptoms, and you might take we have to what you call an escherectomy. You just excise the eschar and release that increased compartment space. If it is undetected, sometimes it can present later on after several months or years. That can lead on to ischemic fibrosis and contractures. Systemic manifestations can occur. Fluid losses from the leaking capillaries. They may be external or internal. They might be external bleeding also. The patient is a case of burn. He might have fallen somewhere. He might have hit his head, and he might be losing from there. Blood loss can be there. So external or internal edema can be there. And that is why prevention of hypovolemia is the most important step in resuscitation of these patients. Multiple organ failure can caused by hypovolemia or sepsis from infections or uncontrolled overreaction to inflammatory response to sepsis. Some other special type of ulcers like Curling's ulcers, immunosuppression in burns patient, these are also seen as systemic response to burns, especially when they are severe burns. Some special types of burns are important, like inhalational injuries. When you have got a burn in a closed space, the patient might inhale the fumes and the toxic fumes. Then thermal injury can also occur to the upper airways. Direct burns can occur in the upper airways, and this can lead on to stridor or hoarseness. Inhalation of products of conception leads to damage to bronchial trees, lungs, leading on to hypoxia and what we call a respiratory distress syndrome, adult or childhood respiratory distress syndrome. Sometimes you can have a carbon monoxide poisoning also as because of the inhalational injuries. Some clinical features of burns. One is the pain. All burns are painful. If a burn is not causing pain, that usually means it's a full thickness burn. We'll talk about partial thickness and full thickness burns. Then if pain is not there, then it usually means a full thickness burn. Anxiety, the patient has suffered a burn. It's an anxious process. He has been evacuated from a burning building or something. So anxiety is very common manifestation in these patients. Fluid losses and dehydration, we have talked about fluid losses, that this is a very important aspect of assessment of a patient, and we have to find out about the level of dehydration in these patients. Tissue edema, especially when there are superficial burns. When you have got superficial burns, you will have tissue edema in form of blisters, and sometimes the tissue edema may be severe to block the airways, that is your respiratory passages, or sometimes, like we talked about, it may be severe to cause a compartment syndrome. The patient might also be unconscious, either because he is asphyxiated or because of the inhalational injuries, or he might be trying to run away from the site and hit his head or lost consciousness because of the head injury. So, first part, even before we talk about the type of burns, we talk about the management part. So management starts at the site of incident itself. So you stop the burning process, you just wrap the patient, switch off the mains, stop contact with the chemicals, and then you cool the burn surface. Once the patient has been removed from the site, you pour a lot of cold water or free running water and you cool the burn surface. Once you cool the burn surface, the process of burning is stopped at a certain extent and you can decrease the extent of the burns and the severity of the burns. So before we start with the calculation of burns, the burns are classically divided into superficial burns where only the epidermis and the dermis is burned. When you full thickness burns, portion of the dermis is burned. When you have full thickness burns, the burns go up to the level of the dermis, full thickness of the dermis, and sometimes up to the subcutaneous tissue. Since the nerve endings are at the end of the subcutaneous tissue and end at the level of the dermis, that is why when you have full thickness burns, the nerve endings are destroyed and patients do not have pain. Whereas all superficial burns will be very painful. Then comes calculation of burns. By looking at a burn, you can sometimes decide whether it's a superficial and deep burn, but we have to also know about the calculation of the burns, that is the percentage of the body that is burnt in this process. This is called a rule of 9. When you have a rule of 9, the head and neck area is 9, the chest area is 9, the back area of the same chest portion is again 9, the abdomen front is 9, back is 9. Then you've got lower limbs, both the lower limbs 9, front and back, and the upper limbs you can take 9, total front and back is 9. That is 4.5 from the front, 4.5 from the back. And genitalia is 1%. So an adult patient who is coming for you, this diagram is very important because you have to mark that site and you can decide, supposing this is just 50% of the head and neck area is burned, so you'll label it as 4.5. Supposing this area just only the upper part is burned, again 4.5. So you calculate total depending upon the approximate area that is burned, and that is the percentage of the burn area that is seen. So when you have criteria for admission, in children, more than 5% of area which is burned is a criteria for admission. In adults, 10 to 15% is the criteria for admission for burns. In children, the rule of 9 does not apply because the head and neck area is larger. So it's a slightly different calculation for children. So that diagram I have not shown. The calculation is difficult. So you have to individually calculate for each child the amount of extent of the burn. The other indications for admission in the hospital setup becomes when you have got inhalation injuries, because they might not manifest in the initial 6 to 12 hours. The inhalation injury manifests later because either the toxic fluids which causes damage to the trachea and the respiratory passages later, or the inhalational injuries causes enema and causes obstruction to the airways at a later date. They might not manifest initially. So most of the inhalational injuries should be kept under observation and only released if they are asymptomatic for the next 24 or maybe for 48 hours. Then if the patient has been evacuated from a burning building where other people have had casualties, those patients should also be monitored under close supervision with the because the risk of developing severe levels of burns is very high. Next comes the part of resuscitation. In resuscitation, this A, B, C, D, E, F is added for burns patients specifically. Otherwise, most of the resuscitation of all the acute emergencies, emergency processes will include, or for that matter, trauma also will include A, B, C, D, E. A means airway. Airway is very important in burn patients because, like we talked about, inhalational injuries. So airways may be blocked. So you have to assess whether the airway is blocked, whether the tongue is falling back and causing obstruction of the airway. The best method is to assess the airway is to call out the patient's name or ask the patient's name or to ask the patient to vocalize. Once he vocalizes, then you know that the airway is patent. Otherwise, you have to make the airway patent. You have to open the jaw, sweep the airway with maybe a handkerchief over your finger, or there are other methods of clearing the airway which we call a jaw thrust that I will not talk about here. So airway is taken. B is the breathing. Breathing means whether the lungs are expanding fully. Airway is the upper respiratory pathway where there is an obstruction. Breathing is airway may be intact, but he may not be breathing. If he is not breathing, then you look for the reason for his not breathing. Maybe he has got some other injuries in the chest, maybe a associated chest trauma. That is why he's breathing inside the chest and he's not able to. The lung is not able to expand because there is either blood in the thorax or maybe air in the thorax causing pneumothorax, and that is why the breathing is affected. C is the circulation. The C and F are almost similar. Circulation is we have to see for the blood pressure of this patient and see whether he has lost a severe amount of blood loss or the fluid losses have occurred, and you have to start by give wide bore cannulas and start the fluid resuscitation. D is disability. We talked about that the patient might be having a head injury, or maybe the patient is trapped under some debris after the burn process has occurred, and maybe he has got a fracture of one of the lower limbs or the upper limbs. That causes disability. E is exposure. When exposure means that you have to expose the patient fully and see for all the areas which can be burned, or maybe he has got some external injuries unrelated to burn. So exposure becomes important, especially in burn patient, because sometimes the front of the patient may not be burned. You turn the patient, you find that the back is burned. So exposure. And last is F, that is fluid resuscitation. That is part and parcel of C only, but becomes very important because fluid resuscitation is the hallmark of treatment of all burn patients. So when we talk about the fluid resuscitation, we have to talk about the calculation of the fluid. So the basic calculation is, once we have calculated the percentage of burn surface area, that is 3 to 4 ml per kilogram body weight per percentage of burn surface area. This is for the first 24 hours. And then out of this, half volume should be given in the 8 hours. So in the 8 hours, the resuscitation is faster. And the rest of the half volume is given in the next 16 hours. So these are the three solutions which are commonly preferred. So whatever is available in your institute, you can use Ringer lactate, normal saline, Hartmann solution. Out of these, Ringer lactate and normal saline are most commonly available. Blood as a resuscitation fluid is not a good solution in the first initial 24 to 48 hours. It should be reserved if the patient has lost blood, or the patient, because of dressings or because of debridement, keeps on losing blood and the hemoglobin falls down. That time blood resuscitation is important, but not as the initial fluid for resuscitation. Then comes the other management. Mainly is you have to give them broad spectrum antibiotics. Broad spectrum antibiotics, you'll be reading about different types of antibiotics. So the most of the common organisms which infect the burn wounds are either gram positive or gram negative bacilli or cocci. So you have to cover both of those all these spectrum with your antibiotics. Dressings have to be done. Dressings have to be regular, and though they are very painful, you might have to give them good analgesia. Sometimes they have to give narcotics. Narcotics are basically drugs like morphine, fentanyl, which sedate the patient so that the dressing becomes less painful. Sometimes you might have to do dressing under general anesthesia also, but that is not possible every time. But dressings are required so that the wound doesn't get infected, or if it is infected, then the colonization of the bacteria is decreased to a large extent. Then you can have certain special dressing materials like placenta or allantois, which are tried, which can be used to cover the burn area. They allow the process of healing to be faster, and the colonization of the site with bacteria to be less. The role of surgery is mainly for once the dressing has been done and you find that a large raw area is there, and the surrounding skin will not come in that large raw area. So you have to provide a skin cover, because once you provide a skin cover, that area will start healing. Otherwise, that raw area will keep on harboring organisms and will not allow the healing process to occur fast. So you can give a partial thickness graft, skin graft, that's also called a Thiersch graft, or a full thickness graft, that's called a Wolf graft. So depending upon the type, I'll not go into the details, that we'll later read later. It's a partial thickness where only portion of the epidermis and the dermis is taken, and you can actually graft a very large portion of the area. Whereas full thickness is not usually used in the initial part of the treatment of burn patients. That's more of for cosmetic purposes. A very small area can be covered with the full thickness graft. So role of full thickness graft is not much in initial burn patients. Then the last part, that is the rehabilitation. So rehabilitation becomes important. The patient has been treated, the burn wound has healed, but you will find that a lot of burn patients, they develop contractures, their joints, the burns have caused the joints, the skin has healed, but the joint is now fixed into a position. So they will require regular physiotherapy where each and every joint will be moved actively as well as passively. They might be, if you have a good physiotherapy setup, they might send you to some center where machines are there so that they can do exercises of the muscles so that the muscle strength can be regained and contractures can be avoided. Then there's psychological counseling because they have suffered trauma. It is not only physical, it is mental. It can be mental trauma also. Maybe it's a medical legal case where the patient has been tried to be burned by either burning process or maybe chemical burns have been inflicted on them. So psychological counseling becomes a very important mainstay of the treatment or rehabilitation of these patients. They've got some special compression garments. Nowadays, these special compression garments are given, especially over the joints. They will allow the joints to remain, I mean, the contractures not to develop these contractures. The skin remains supple to a large extent, and the extent of movement of the joints is maintained. So these compression garments are also required. The tissue edema is also less with these compression garments. And lastly is the surgery. The role of surgery in the rehabilitation process is mainly to release contractures. There are a lot of surgical procedures are available nowadays which will release the contractures and allow the joints to be freed so that movement of those joints can be done to a normal extent, to a largely normal extent. The normal, sometimes it may not be possible to do it to a complete extent, but to a largely a normal extent. Okay, thank you. I've taken the topic in brief only because it may not be possible for you to understand a lot of aspects of the burn process. Okay, you can ask questions if you want. Or you can type in the chat box. Any questions? I think you're all unmuted. Any questions? I don't know, the chat box is empty. Okay. Okay, if you don't have any questions, I'll just write my email ID. You might. If you have any questions later on, you can ask me later on my mail. I'll try to answer your questions. Okay, otherwise, thank you. Okay, thank you. Let's end the session.